In this video, I am going to show you how to create our first CSS. I hope you remember that in my previous video, I showed you how to create internal and external style with the Dreamweaver. So continues on that, and then I'm gonna show you how to create your first CSS. Let's get started. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I can start with what we created. Like, do you remember that we created a blank HTML because I didn't put any content in it. So blank HTML, and I attached the blank CSS external style. So I'm gonna show you external style first. And this when I create this first CSS. So I want you to know how to do it internal and external, but again, like I said, my assumption is if you create any rule, it'll be applied to the other HTML. So for this particular example, I am going to use external, okay? But in the future, I will use internal and external interchangeably. All right, so I'm gonna open up my first HTML, and as you can see now, so didn't I tell you that I am going to show you the first CSS, right? So the first CSS I am going to show you is called, because I'm gonna type in over here, called a tag-based CSS, okay? So what do we mean by that? We learned a lot of tags, like particularly we learned the container tags. So there are some tags for the formatting, some tags for the container, the content. Good example is H1. H1 contains title in it. That's why we call it as a container tag. The same goes H1 to 6. P tag contains paragraph in it. Table tag contains all the table contents in it. Unordered list, ordered list, all those have a list in it. Those are all container tags. But how about U? U stands for like underline. So underline format the content, but it doesn't really is originally holding a content in it. In other words, if you have any content here, but they're only captured by U tag, that's wrong. Because U tag is not supposed to contain any content. It can only be inside of a container tag, then you can do it. Like, in other words, you have a H1 tag here, and then you can use a U tag inside of it. But if you use anything like U tag alone, that's wrong. So we are going to create a rule for container tag. So let's say first container, so H1 tag as container. So look at here. We are about to make this one as H1 which means it's gonna contain as H1 tag. How to do it? Highlight this one here, and if you go under the format here, right now it's set up as a paragraph, but if you go to the H1, boom, look at this. This is H1 style. And well, H1 already have a style. Why do we need a H1 style? Here's why. Look at this, H1 to H6, even P. It has a bit of a different size. H1 style is the biggest. H6 is the smallest heading tag or title tags, and paragraph has its own size, but it doesn't really allow you to change a specific font color, font size, or font family. So in our first task is we are going to create a CSS rule for each tag. So what does it mean by that? We are going to create a H1 tag, H1 rule. So what's gonna happen is whenever we define H1 rule, let's say I wanna, let's say I always hated this color of H1 tag, it's black. So what if we say, well, I always wanted to have my H1 tag color as blue. How to do it? So that's why we call it a tag based. So let's work on it because this is a default style. So in order to do so all, we have to go to the CSS Designer panel, okay? And I want you to look at over here. The first thing you have to do is you have to target where you want to put your CSS style in. In this case, as I said, I'm going to highlight this my style.css because that's the file that I want you to put like all my CSS instruction. So I highlighted it. And like I said, I don't need that much of media because we don't do anything media here. So we're gonna skip add media. The next, our next step is selectors. So what did I say about selectors? Selectors are like the declaration, right? Which tag, which like inside of your HTML, which component, which element you wanna add, you wanna style or format. So obviously you have to click on, many people try to type in here with a next to magnifier. It's a searching bar. And then you may wonder why do we need a searching bar over here? Believe it or not, sometimes some complicated website, especially commercial one, they have more than 100, 200 like selectors here, and then they all have a different name. So it's really hard to find by scrolling up and down. In that case, you can easily search for the selector name. So that means when you create any selectors here, the name should be meaningful. Otherwise, you'll be lost. You don't know how to search it even. Okay. So for tag based on CSS, which means we are going to replace the default set of the style. What you can do is click on plus sign over here, which means we are going to create a new selector, plus. And then it's gonna like with the highlight and whatever you come, Dreamweaver try to read your mind and do something. Whatever it happened, just delete everything, and then we're gonna start from the scratch. So we just click on plus, and then now it's waiting for my input. Don't be confused by you click on inside of this magnifier. This box appear because I click on the plus sign over here, and I'm about to add my first CSS. So big question is, what is the name of my selector? What am I about to do? I'm going to change my H1 row, right? So the name should be H1. So it's just like H1. You don't have to do anything capitalized or space, just type in H1 and hit the enter key, or you can take it out of it. So there's H1 over here, right? You can highlight it. So I just created H1 here. Now, H1, meaning that what do you do with H1? H1 will replace the style over here. Even though you just created a selector, which is a target, but there's no value attached. That's why H1 doesn't change at all. So what's my mission again? Change the font color. So over here, I'm about to explain the most important thing about this show set button. Okay, so in CSS, whenever you create this selector, there are only exactly whatever name you give, there are always exactly the same numbers of things possible, whatever name you do, like H1P, whatever you do. And if you uncheck this guy, so not showing the set, which means nothing is set yet, so which means it's gonna show up everything. So if I uncheck this one, look at this. If you scroll down, these are things that you can do with the CSS. No, for now, none of the thing actually makes sense to you probably. So you can go to the first and second and third. You can jump around this, like, portion of the CSS, but literally you can scroll down as well, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. So first thing called the layout, it's just something to do with the layout. Second is a text. Third is a border. First is a background. So for example, if you click on the background, you scroll down to over here, and there is just some background options. Okay, so there are like things you can do, but I just created H1 rule over here doing nothing. So that's why if I click on show set, nothing will be populated over here because nothing was set. So when you first time user for the CSS, uncheck show set, and you have to scroll down, and what do you want to do? Didn't I say that I want to change the font color? So where is that option over here? You have to find out. So look at here, layout, width, layout is nothing to do with it. Scroll down, and there's a text, okay? And then color. Oh, this may change the H1 color. So click on it, and then the color palette will show up. I said blue, right? So I'm gonna just pick a blue color over here. Yes. All right. So you click on it. There's a no OK button. What does it mean? You just click outside of this window. Boom. Oh, look at this. All of a sudden, my H1 changed to blue. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, all H1 in this document will be in this color because I changed it. Now, look at over here on top of here, and then show set. Didn't I say that when you click on this, it's gonna show the list of things that's set. So if I click on it, boom, all of a sudden, everything disappeared and text and color shows up. So within this little H1 rule, this is target. There are only one thing set, which is a color. In other words, there are only a color change there. And you can keep adding up. So I'm gonna uncheck show set. Okay, how about I'm gonna change the size of the font. As I do, I want you to know one at a time, okay? So there are a lot of things you can do with a text. This is a very similar with what you do with a Microsoft Word. I'm gonna just make it center aligned, and I wanna change it to font size here. So I can do a lot of different things, like you can just say small, large, but I'm gonna actually go to the PX, and then I'm gonna give it say 30 pixel. Boom, that's not that big, okay? So 60, boom, okay? So what does it mean? My H1 will be already 16 size of blue. And then it just center aligned. Now, if you click on show set, you will be three things: color, font size, and alignment. So these three things are done under H1 tag. Okay. You can change directly from show set size. So you can click on the color, and then you can change it to the violet like this way, and then to violet over here. All right. Now, if you click over here, this is H2 tag, and then you can highlight it up, highlight this. You can make it as heading 2. Look at this, heading 2 is still black. So how do you make any change you don't like H2 tag? How are you gonna do it? Okay, the same rule here. Make sure that you highlight my first CSS, skip add media, click on the selector. This time, whatever it suggests, delete it, and you say H2 and enter. Okay, so look at this. If you highlight H1, because you click on the show set, H1 has those three things set up here. But if you click on H2, nothing. Why? Because you didn't do anything with the H2. So what I'm gonna do is uncheck this one, and I'm gonna change it to my color of H2 with the red. Okay, and then I'm gonna make it as an underline. How about that? So underline. If you show set, Underline doesn't work. So that's why you have to double check with the underline, the show set, because sometimes if by clicking, it doesn't set. So set and click on show set. Yeah, two things. So color and under, look at this. This is red and underline. All right. How about rule for the P? So what you can do is you can go to the say this is a paragraph blah blah like this, right? And then blah 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 blah, right? So this is my paragraph. Let's say that. And I don't like it. Like I want my paragraph with some other colors. So what you can do is go under the CSS Designer panel, My Story, click on Selector, and you have to say P. Enter. Nothing. So I'm going to have to, like, you highlight the P, uncheck Show Set, go to the text title, and I'm going to change the color first. So color will be green. And I want to change the font family. So font size, I'm going to go to the something with like Lucida. Cool. It's too bright, so I'm going to make it a little bit dark. Okay. All right. Cool. And I am going to make it as left aligned. Yeah. And the font size, I'm going to make it like a very large. About click on Show Set. Here we go. This is what it is. So this is all good. The problem is, no, actually, we don't have to say the problem. So once you're done, this is very important. Look at on the left side of your window. So there is a tab showing your file name, myfirst.html. And what do you see in the end? The asterisk mark, which means your file has been, there has been some changes after you made, you saved the last time. So if you don't do anything, all the thing you made will be gone if you don't save it. So you have to go under the save. So now your HTML is saved. But hey, look at this. My first CSS, there's an asterisk mark in too. What do we mean by that? So what you see over here is all HTML because you highlight the source code over here. But if you switch to the my first.css, wow, look at this. This is actual CSS code. And this was created by CSS Designer panel over here. As you can see, if you go over here, it just keeps changing over here. The problem is your CSS file was not saved. So once you saved HTML, you thought I saved everything, and then you go, you just quit the Dreamweaver, and then you had like a sweet dream. You will find the next morning that you are in the disaster, because most of the time web developer, they work on the CSS for hours and hours and hours. And if you don't save CSS, your hours of work will be gone. So what am I saying? You have to save this first CSS file as well. But how to do it? Like my first recommendation is to look for this asterisk mark, which means it's not saved. But this is like true my recommendation for you. Whenever you've done something, when you save it, don't just save it. I want you to just say save all. So what do you mean by save all? It'll save everything open in this window, and then it just save everything as it is, which includes the CSS. So let's say click on, let's make some changes over here. So now look at here. My HTML has asterisk, my CSS has an asterisk mark here, right? I'm gonna go to the switch. And then when you are staying with the source code, you don't see actual CSS code. That's why it's easy to forget. My recommendation, go into the file, save all. What do you see? Everything is saved. Okay, cool. So according to this rule, you will be able to create any rule for any of the element. I just only show you here like H1, H2, and P. But what should be the name in the selector for the table? Yeah, table. How about like unordered the list? How are you gonna uh, name the rule for the CSS? Yeah, UL. That's the name of the rule, right? You don't need a bracket on there, just like name it as it. So in this example, I showed you how to create your own style with a CSS. Now, remember though, see, I had this H1 style, H2 style, and P style over here. And then I want to create another H1. So this is another H1 title. And then I'm going to highlight it and then go to your property window. Instead of paragraph, I'm going to make it as a heading 1. But here's the problem. I want to like this H1 as this color, but then I want to use other H1 as a different style. How do you do it? Well, unfortunately, under this tag based on CSS, this is what it is, because it is creating a rule for entire tag and apply to every single tag it uses. So this is powerful, but then you're not going to be able to differentiate. Hey, I want a H1 style for this, but then a different style for another H1. That is not possible. Like I said, this is a tag based, which means all the tag will be the same style. Okay. All right. In this video, I have a lot of information like CSS Designer panel, how to deal with the property windows, everything. So if you have any question, like I said, first stop is you have to review and then rewind this video and watch it again. If you still don't, if you can't figure out, still email me. Thank you for watching, and then I will see you guys in my next video.